Hey guys. This is part 9 of What If Naruto Was in Bloodborne. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 33. If Hunter is Fool then Vampire is Magus. Sakura thought her part to play in the infiltration of the castle owned by the Kazuhana clan was a bit boring, but she definitely saw the importance. She did, however, wonder how Kakashi knew she'd been stocking up on Kabakufuda. Sometimes the things her Jonin sensei knew about her concerned the pink-haired genin. Potential privacy invasions aside, the plan seemed solid. Sakura didn't know the full plan because apparently ninjas should get used to not being aware of everything their allies were going to do at all times. She really wished Kakashi would pick better times than dangerous missions that had gone wrong to teach them stuff like that, but she supposed it was the perfect time to bring it up. Sakura didn't like it though. She knew what Naruto was up to. They all knew his part to play. What she did not like was not knowing where Sasuke was, or what the Uchiha was doing. It worried her. She knew he was a good ninja, but that just meant he'd have a task with more potential threats. Sakura felt a bit down that she'd been given a job where she would be lucky to interact with enemy genin, let alone the lightly armored Chunin forces they'd gone up again. Instead, her job was to set up explosives in points Sandae mapped, Kabakufuda, that would simulate an earthquake without actually damaging any structural support. She was supposed to finish setting up and wait for Kakashi's signal, which would come sometime after Naruto attacked the front gate. Sakura still couldn't believe that a huge part of the plan was just attack the front gate. It was so straightforward. No ninja should be so straightforward. The Haruno was starting to realize though that by being loud and distracting, Naruto was more deceptive than Sakura could ever hope to be by being subtle. So she was glad her job for this mission was to set off explosives, because she had an unplanned surprise for the enemy. Plus, hearing the enemy all seemed to have jutsu they named after themselves helped Sakura finally come up with a name for a jutsu she'd been practicing. Sometimes simplicity was key. Sakura became very worried the plan went wrong, however, when before Kakashi gave a signal the foundations of the castle shook in a way that had nothing to do with her planted Kabakufuda. Sasuke stalked behind a Yuki-nin who hadn't even noticed him, but when the alarm went up he knew that was his signal. It was ironic that Naruto didn't know his attack was a signal for him to start moving, but the Uchiha set that thought aside as he jumped up, plunged a kunai into the throat of his target, and shoved the corpse into a broom closet. Sasuke Uchiha paused before he used henge. He knew he shouldn't, but he couldn't help but stop and wonder, this castle actually does have a broom closet? He asked no one in particular. He knew Kakashi had said as much, but he'd assumed the man had meant to just shove the body anywhere. Kakashi had also not said to make the man a corpse, but Sasuke knew no better way to keep him out of the fight. He considered knocking him out and tying him up, but determined the lost time and risk of escape too high. Mostly the Uchiha steeled himself because he knew Naruto had gotten plenty of kills, and would get more. He didn't think the blonde was bothered by it, so why should he be? Sasuke was still a little bothered by the corpse, so he quickly used henge no jutsu before someone could come along and blow his cover. His Sharingan allowed him to copy down the minute details of the man he'd killed, and the idea was that in the panic of the alarm no one would ask for him to identify himself. He should apparently keep an eye out for hand signals and be aware that they might attack him if he failed to answer correctly, or at all, so that was an issue he would have to improvise around. Kakashi's teaching methods were weird, but Sasuke preferred the hands-off sink or swim approach anyway. It was familiar to the Uchiha. He joined the back of a cell as their fifth without explaining himself. Kakashi had not even mentioned how stressful it was to be hidden behind enemy lines. When spikes of ice burst through the floor, walls, and ceiling, Sasuke decided something had gone wrong. He shoved two older men into the ice before he dived back and tossed a pair of shuriken at each with deft hands. He tucked his chin and rolled into a crouch with a kunai palmed into a reverse grip in his right hand, but leaped back again as the two remaining men were impaled by ice pillars. Sasuke activated his Sharingan as the ice pillars formed a glacier in the hallway, but was alarmed to see it was not the lesser Hayatan of the Yukigekyo shinobi, it was Haku's much more potent chakra. The Uchiha took a moment to inspect it as he backed away, From what he was starting to understand, Haku's Hayaton was a blend of Suiton and Futon, a perfect natural blend. However, the Yukigekyo Hayaton was similar. There was definitely a blend of Futon and Suiton, but Haku's was so perfect that they had in fact blended to become a new element. As far as Sasuke had seen, only Hariyamoko was the only ninjutsu the enemy had which was cold enough to freeze things, and the Uchiha had seen with his own dojutsu that it was much closer to Haku's chakra than the others without quite being there. So what made Haku's Kekkei Genkai so cursed? Sasuke wanted to know, so he watched the ice grow with his Sharingan. He could admit it did not seem natural how easily Haku could blend his chakra into an element, but that was just how some Kekkei Genkai worked. Sasuke felt a chill. He knew there was no draft despite the damage. The ice had quite handily plugged the holes it made. His eyes widened as he realized the ice wasn't just cold, it was leaching heat from the air. Even if those men hadn't been impaled, they would have frozen to death moments after being encased as they were. The ice wasn't as clear as normal for Haku's jutsu though, and even Sasuke's Sharingan had some difficulty picking out the 4 extra corpses he made. Technically Haku had made them, but the boy likely didn't even know, and the Uchiha would count them as his kills. He'd shove 2 at the ice and force the other 2 to dodge in unfavorable conditions. Sasuke determined that using the terrain-altering ninjutsu of an ally as a weapon definitely still counted as his kills, but he wasn't sure why his mind got caught up on that. Kakashi thought his plan was brilliant. The only hitch was apparently Zabuza and Haku would find Doto before him. Not that it was a particularly bad hitch, he just knew from their last few scuffles with the Chakra no Yoroi that his Raikiri was ironically better for dealing with their armor than the Kubikurabocho. Not that the Hatake could see them fighting, but he already knew he'd chosen the wrong location when he found absolutely no one in the medical wing. Odd, Doto should have been more injured from the damage to his armor. Fubuki should definitely be here after falling off a cliff, and I doubt that big guy recovered from being poisoned already. He mused, but even without lifting his Hitaite he noticed details. No doctors and missing equipment was pretty conspicuous. But how was Kakashi supposed to know Doto would demand to be treated somewhere else? Where else would he be treated? Zabuza Momochi did not like the castle. It was oddly designed. He got the feeling local ninja had been commissioned to build it centuries ago. The dungeon even went into an underground cavern, which seemed like a massive security risk, but that was none of his business. The location of the throne room was notably not the center of the building, but off to a protected side, and it seemed like some hallways could be used to screen people going to petition the daimyo. Unfortunately for Doto Kazuhana, the Nuke Nin was not here to petition. Nobody had made the comparison, but Zabuza didn't like that he had technically performed a similar crime to Doto. His reasons were better, and he was no slayer of his own kin, but they had both initiated a coup. Zabuza would admit privately to himself that he was a little bitter. The man who was morally worse was the one who succeeded, but he also would never admit to moralizing out loud. The throne in the room was on top of a tall structure with stairs built into it, and there was a hole in the ground at the foot of those stairs that did not seem to be part of the architecture. The room had Doto in it, along with Fubuki and Mizore, a team of doctors tending to them. Although they seemed to have treated most injuries, it seemed the 2 were still suffering effects from their injuries. As well as that, there were a few Yukigekyo Chunin spread out to keep watch. Not that they spotted Zabuza or Haku, but the strangest sight to Zabuza was the team of laborers around the damaged floor. Strange because they weren't repairing anything. They had set up a chain pulley system and were lowering something into the frozen caverns beneath the castle. Zabuza realized that perhaps the underground caverns were important business, as he noticed from his new perspective on the caverns that they were not merely frozen rock, they were solid ice. Who built a castle on foundations of solid ice? That it was even possible beggared belief. More pertinent to the mission was that Doto had elected to have a helmet made for him, and the others with Chakra no Yoroi. That or they always had better helmets, and just hadn't bothered to wear them before. Nader-san learned something useful about those sound waves. Mizore spoke up suddenly, his voice slightly muffled by the enclosed helmet. It matters little with the sound dampening we had installed. Doto grumbled, voice equally muffled. Zabuza supposed that regardless of whether or not they had helmets before, they'd upgraded specifically to match Naruto's odd sound gauntlet. He supposed it mattered little. He readied himself for a risky move, and with a shunshin he was behind his target. Kubikuribocho cut through the air as fast as Zabuza could swing. Doto had no time to react and was sent through his own throne, the stone chair shattering and medical equipment clattering. The Nuke-Nin who delivered the blow mentally cursed as he ducked a left hook from Miser and dived away from Fubuki's follow-up shuriken throw, because even at the thinnest point his blade had not torn through the chakra no Yoroi, plus he didn't hear any bones break. Zabuza landed on the top of the pulley mechanism that led into the caverns and risked a glance below, but they were lowering the chain down where even the refracting effect of the ice couldn't send the light deep enough. He lifted Kubikuribocho to his right shoulder and leveled a glare at Doto as the man stood, his expression unreadable behind the enclosed helmet. It was an odd design. Most heavy armor used a mask with a face. He had assumed Doto would be vain enough, but he supposed they'd rush the helmets in a panic. When Zabuza made to move, he found his feet stuck. He glanced down, and was surprised to notice few ninjutsu he'd missed before holding him in place. Fubuki threw a pair of kunai as Mizore sidestepped and watched with an apprehensive expression. A quick swing of Kubikuribocho knocked the thrown blades out of the air and broke the pulley system beneath him. With the load-bearing bar broken, the fuinjutsu and everything else about the system collapsed. Zabuza leaped away, but that was when Mizore made his move. He struck out, and the hand of his gauntlet launched out with a cable attached and grabbed Zabuza by the right leg. Crashes and bangs echoed from the caverns below, but Zabuza had bigger concerns as he was dragged towards the heavily armored group of shinobi, and a daimyo that knew Hayatan ninjutsu. The Nuke-Nin managed to angle it so he was either impaled on remains of the pulley system, broken, or terribly scraped up by the time he hit the stairs, which was when Haku intervened by landing on the cable hard enough to crack the stone steps. The masked boy made a hand sign and flared his chakra, but Zabuza noticed the alarm jolt as the castle shook, the stairs cracked. Another hole was opened to the cavern, but this one by large spikes of ice from the frozen caverns below bursting up through the ground. It severed Mizore's cable, and from it more ice grew. Haku staggered back and separated his hands, but the eyes continued after their retreating enemies. Zabuza knew enough about chakra, ninjutsu, and Hayatan to know this was not Haku's doing. Who was doing it he didn't know, but he grabbed Haku and leaped away from the growing ice crystals. He noticed the temperature dropping and made a retreat. He determined they could go after Doto once they escaped whatever was giving off such a chilling but subtle killing intent. Sakura ran down a corridor in the maze-like castle. She knew it probably wasn't safe, but she was sick of being left out of the action. At the start of her career, the thought of being protected by Sasuke made her giddy. Then when it came down to it, she needed to be protected by not just Sasuke, but Kakashi and even Naruto. The kunoichi was embarrassed that it took the Chunin exams to be her wake-up call, but in hindsight she was grateful Kakashi let them compete. Or he'd push for them to be allowed to compete. She actually had no idea, and getting her sensei to answer questions seriously was an exercise in frustration unless the situation was already dire. The situation, of course, did become dire as she encountered both Doto and his remaining shinobi, and the source of the shaking. Seeing a glacier grow out of seemingly thin air was bad enough. Seeing the more fully armored Doto, Mizore, and Fubuki only added to that. Of course, Kakashi wasn't around when the situation became dire. But instead of lamenting that for too long, Sakura turned and ran the way she'd come. One of the enemy in Chakra no Yoroi was difficult, but she might have something that could work. 3 of them was out of her league at the moment. Sakura had no idea what was chasing the heavily armored Yuki-Nin or their equally as armored boss, but it seemed to be even scarier than Haku's version of Hayatan, or Haku had just snapped. She had seen Naruto do things that shouldn't be possible while angry, so she was starting to suspect strong emotions could affect chakra somehow. A small part of her taunted herself for thinking that her mood swings were just chakra, but she had no time for that voice at the moment. Unfortunately, Doto and his remaining guards were quite happy to follow Sakura. She thought she'd seen more trying to get away too, but she wasn't keen on looking back to see how they were faring. Then she saw another lightly armored Yukigekyo shinobi. "Run!" She called out in a panic, hoping that her word would be enough to stop the Yuki ninja from attacking her. The man took one look at the wall of approaching ice, that was moving far faster than ice had any right to move, and the only visible part of his face, his eyes, widened in alarm before he unthinkingly obeyed the order of a foreign genin. It was a very sensible order in that moment, and they were soon joined by others, including Sasuke, much to her surprise. The Uchiha looked like he might try to fight or throw a ninjutsu at the ice, but thankfully he didn't hesitate on fight or flight for long and fell into step next to Sakura. "What happened?" he asked. "No idea," Sakura confessed quietly, trying to keep her breathing measured to keep her endurance up for as long as possible. She realized they'd become part of the enemy mob, but she couldn't see Haku. Then she saw up ahead Naruto turn the corner, followed by his new Mizuchi ally. The giant sea snake scared Sakura a lot, but she was glad to see the blonde. The genin was surprised to be more relieved to see her Chunin teammate than Sasuke, but set that aside as she focused her chakra. The two genin of Cell 7 leaped ahead of the pack as Kakuri breathed a gout of flame. Naruto, on the other hand, was a little startled by the sight of everyone running away from a wall of ice. 4 surviving lightly armored Yukigekyo shinobi dove under the flames along with Dodo, Fubuki, and Mizore. The wall of ice hit the stream of flame and steam burst from the point of contact. The lightly armored Yukinin seemed better off than Fubuki or Mizore, and even Doto got up before the two. Fubuki and Mizore weren't just slower either, they seemed shaky. The large man was likely still poisoned, and the Konoha ninja would suppose Fubuki was still sore from getting tossed off a mountain if she didn't cough in her helmet. It was hard to ascertain their condition for certain with the armor and new helmets covering them up. Naruto charged through the mist and swung his left fist at Doto, but was surprised when the man simply punched back this time. The man's right fist impacted with Naruto's left with a cracking sound. The blonde winced. He wasn't sure what fingers were broken, but sliced at Doto's neck with Amasukahoko, flowing chakra into it to give it the white chakra light. However, the man simply lifted his left arm and caught the weapon haft on his forearm. Sparks flew as the white light chakra clashed with the gauntlet of Doto's black chakra no Yoroi. Sound dampeners work perfectly, the man said smugly as he grabbed the Amasukahoko and slugged Naruto in the face. When the blonde didn't let go, he grabbed Kiyomi Isuppaka and with a twist he pulled. Naruto had endured pain before, but his arm snapping at the elbow was a new one. He was surprised he didn't scream, but he was more surprised that Kakuri tried to bite Doto's head off with a roar. She did not seem to care that she would be taking shoulders too, but hissed angrily as her teeth failed to penetrate the armor. There was also the fact that Mizuchi had shrunk herself slightly to accomplish this maneuver without harming Naruto, so Mizore attacked by way of tackling the serpent's midsection, tearing her away from Doto. Then Fubuki stepped up with a pair of kunai and drove one into Naruto's left shoulder and the other into his left elbow before she pulled at the Chunin. In the same moment, Doto pulled at Amasukahoko and Kiyomi Isuppaka. Naruto grit his teeth but couldn't stop a pain noise coming through them with a sharp exhale as he released Amasukahoko to grab the right hand, jamming a kunai into his left shoulder. But his mind blanked with pain as his left arm was severed at the elbow. It was not a clean cut. Fubuki was surprised that the blonde was holding her back still. She'd figured he would go into shock from the pain. Mizore meanwhile was struggling to wrestle with the hissing Mizuchi. Sakura stepped back with a stunned expression as too many things were happening, and she had no idea what to do. Sasuke leaped past the ninja wrestling the serpent, and grabbed Fubuki's left hand as she readied that kunai for another swing at Naruto. Doto simply tossed Naruto's left arm at the boy with a basic tossing motion, but the Kiyomi Isuppaka remained in his right hand until he switched the items he'd taken, so the bloody Kiyomi Isuppaka was in his left hand and Amasukahoko was in his right. Fubuki pulled back from the younger two ninja, weaving around a toss shuriken from the Uchiha before she hopped up at them and delivered a pair of kicks. One hit Naruto in the chest and sent him against the wall with blood trailing from his left elbow. The blonde stared at his severed arm, fingers half-healed from being broken before, with a stunned expression. Sasuke did not even attempt to block. He dodged the kick, but he noticed his blonde teammate was slightly in shock and wasn't sure what to do about that. Doto's triumphant smirk twitched as the temperature suddenly dropped. The Yukigekyo shinobi became nervous. Mizore tried to pull away from his wrestling match, but Kakuri bit his already damaged left arm gauntlet and tugged at that. Fubuki stepped away from Sasuke. The Uchiha considered giving chase, but he could feel the steam from before suddenly hit freezing temperatures against his skin. Naruto was a bit dazed. He wasn't sure what would happen if he died and didn't have all his limbs attached, and a few worst-case scenarios had the Chunin force himself to his feet and stagger towards his own severed limb. He barely made it 2 steps before the hallway became white. Naruto shivered, but he noticed everyone else was eerily still. The blonde heard movement, but turning to the sound caused his stick neck to crack and frozen sweat on his neck to break off. But he saw Kikuria had let the frozen Mizore go and was swaying back. He recognized she was in pain and terrified, but he wasn't sure what gave him those impressions or how he was reading the body language of a snake so well. Maybe he was just delirious and imagining impressions. He'd lost a lot of blood and it was very cold. To Naruto's alarm, Dodo was the next to move. W what? The man managed through chattering teeth as he doubled over, frost dropping from his form as he moved. F frozen? He muttered, clearly shocked and shaken by what happened. Naruto was more startled by the figure that stepped past Dodo. They looked a lot like Haku. Clearly not the same person, but he could mistake them for a relative with the long black hair and pretty feminine features if not for the blue eyes with no pupils and the too white skin. Now that he focused, his bleeding out ironically stopped by the sudden temperature drop. He realized that what he was looking at reminded him of Kakuria's henge more than any person. The white kimono they wore even seemed to be woven out of snow somehow, and the hands being made of solid crystal clear ice that ended in tapered claws gave away how inhuman they were. The figure glanced at Naruto, met his blue eyes with their own, and cocked their head to the side as if regarding him with curiosity behind the blank expression. The moment passed and they turned to Kakuryu. So, you got free after all. A cold voice mused before me. The voice added and the temperature dropped further. Naruto realized they were dealing with another yokai, and his eye twitched. With another cracking sound the blonde turned to Doto. The man looked completely guiltless, which just irritated the blonde Chunin further. Thankfully the man at least had the decency to look scared, if not remorseful. The blonde turned to his team. Sakura and Sasuke were breathing, shallowly, but he could tell from the air misting around their faces that they were still breathing, so the cold had not yet killed them, just halted everyone from moving. Naruto felt the frozen layer on him and realized why everyone was stuck and very few of them could move, so he flared his chakra. Yellow light lifted from the bloodied blonde, lifted steam and frost into the air around him. The yokai that could only be a Yukiana tuned to watch, and his blood flowed again, but he felt his chakra go into the blood more easily, and when that blood touched his severed arm the fingers twitched, the bruising lightened to a more natural shade. And most surprisingly the arm jumped to his elbow to reattach itself. I had no idea I could do that, Naruto confessed, more in wonderment that he could do that than out of any need to tell anyone. Oh, you're like that Mizuchi then. The Yukiana's words were derisive. Naruto felt a chill go down his spine at the realization that the blue eyes of the much more humanoid yokai were staring at him. You both use tainted blood in a useless attempt to become more than you are. Those words stopped Naruto short, so he had been smelling blood. A Mizuchi that used blood she described as smelling like rot. Well, Naruto agreed, but still, Kakuria had intentionally used old blood in her attempts to become a dragon. Not that she was ever a normal Mizuchi, I suppose. Sasuke focused on the bit of information he realized. These were both yokai, both had inhuman Kirakuki. Although the Yukiana had a more humanoid shape, there was nothing human about her. To his Sharingan she seemed to be made of packed snow and given life with chakra. One of them was much more physical. Why was the less humanoid one more physical? Kakuria for her part was shivering and had shrunken further, still as large as a full-grown anaconda but clearly terrified of the Yukiana. Sakura got the impression the serpent would not have breathed that gout of flame if she'd known who was behind the rapidly expanding glacier. Naruto finally found his tongue. I am a shinobi from Konohagakure no Sato. My mission at the moment is to beat up Dodo Kazahana. Is that a problem? He asked, sounding more dangerous than he felt, and with his left arm covered in frosted over blood he looked more intimidating than he felt too. Hana. Doto's eyes widened in alarm. Despite the hesitation in saying the name, the tone was clipped with such raw hatred that the Konoha ninja all realized that Koki definitely needed to be hidden from the ice yokai. Then Doto was encased in ice. Your duty is done. Mizore and Fubuki shivered. Their own armor allowed them to recover, but neither dared move too much. Naruto wasn't sure what to do after that. He knew he should not bring up Koki, but he was still worried about her safety. So, what are you going to do? Probably freeze all these Ningen. That Mizuchi too for good measure if she doesn't scram. Kakuya slithered away and the blonde couldn't help but feel a little abandoned. You can survive my cold at this temperature. I wonder, would you like to see if you can handle what I am truly comfortable with? Naruto's eyes widened in panic. Wait, can I, get my friends out of here first? He asked. Friends with Ningen? Naruto flinched. Her blue eyes had lightened, becoming somehow harder and frostier. What's wrong with that? He asked. He wasn't sure if he should bring up that he used to be a Ningen. I'm a ninja. They're my allies, my teammates. I can't abandon them. That would make me worse than trash. The eyes softened at that. You make a good case, Kyuketsuki-san. Naruto flinched at that title. She thought he was an Oni that exclusively fed on blood. That wasn't even close to how he worked, was it? He knew he needed blood, and he felt a craving to rip into Doto like the man deserved and spill his blood still, but he was still unnerved. He jokingly called himself a vampire, but that was arguably somehow worse. So, I can take my friends? You may take your Ningen and flee my ice. Naruto hoped Kakashi, Zabuza, and Haku got away too. He glanced hesitantly at Doto. He took my stuff too. Can I please take those armaments back? He asked, trying to be polite. Sakura wasn't sure what surprised her more, that Naruto could be that polite, or that he knew bigger words than she thought he did. The Yukiana looked at what Doto had, then she looked at the ice around him. Fine. She decided after a moment, then she gestured her right hand at the ice. Doto was freed a moment later. He gasped and his armor glowed yellow before he swung his left hand. To Naruto's surprise, more ice shattered, which freed the Kazahanakin's slayer completely. The man then lunged at the Yukiana and swung Amasakahoko, like when Naruto poured chakra into it, the shape of a halberd made of chakra overlaid and concealed the bronze war scythe. Unlike when Naruto used Amasakahoko, Doto had on chakra no Yoroi with experimental upgrades that altered the very nature of his chakra in ways only his head researchers fully understood. Doto's Amasakahoko was a light-absorbing black, and it carved the Yukiana in half. The yokai grimaced and flew backwards. Sasuke's Sharingan widened as he recognized the way she molded her chakra to do that was the same way Kakuya did, which used an element that had nothing to do with Hayatan apparently. The Yukiana reached out and her frozen hands became massive claws, but Doto swung his left hand at them, still holding the Kyomiai Supaka, and shattered those with a shrill piercing sound too. Naruto frowned. He was weakened, low on chakra, low on blood. His pet dragon ran away, and his opponent had stolen two of his best weapons. The Yukiana being injured at least made the temperature stop dropping. While that did mean Sasuke and Sakura found it easier to move with bursts of chakra, it was the Uchiha who had to tackle the Haruno out of the way of the escaping Yukiana. The Sharingan could see why the yokai wanted to get away. That weapon had damaged her Kurokuki. He got the impression purely physical attacks were useless against the icy body, but actually damaging the chakra obviously had hurt the Yukiana into fleeing. He was starting to lose his doubts about the Amasakahoko being the Amasakahoko. That weapon was clearly old but powerful, and weird. The other issue with the temperature rising was it was no longer just Naruto against Doto. Mizore and Fubuki recovered, albeit slowly and shakily, and the remaining 4 lightly armored Yukinin were getting up as well. Blood. Naruto felt lightheaded and knew he needed blood. Kyuketsuki, Oni that drank blood. Naruto didn't know anything about them except what the name implied. But what scared him was that he had heard tales of how humans could become Oni when exposed to too much negative energy, and the depths had a lot of negativity associated with it. Was a Ryoshi just a Kyuketsuki? Humans transformed by blood into Oni that craved blood. Disturbingly, it fit the puzzle pieces, but he did not like the result. He was half tempted to just let the first man to come at him kill him so he could question the doll for certain on what his nature actually was. Instead, he palmed a kunai in his left hand as he sidestepped the kunai thrust from the older ninja. Naruto deftly grabbed the man by the wrist, pulled him in and stabbed his own kunai into the man's neck before he cut deeply from left to right, stepped in closer, pressed his left forearm to the man's chin as he tripped his legs and pulled tighter on the wrist. Then he opened his mouth to reveal all 4 of his canines had lengthened, and he bit down into the wound he made. Sakura turned green and even Sasuke was startled into gaping at the sight of Naruto acting like an Oni. They knew his wounds absorbed blood by now, but this seemed different somehow, wrong, as if the Uzumaki had crossed a line and broken a taboo. The blonde dropped the corpse he made and exhaled a sigh of content that misted the cold air with warm blood-scented breath. Then he opened red eyes with slit pupils and glared at Doto. "You cannot kill me," Naruto decided bluntly. "I am not Ninjin," he declared and spread his arms as if daring them to test his hypothesis. A wide grin stretched his bloody lips that bared his still inhumanly long canines. Doto dared test the hypothesis. He thrust Amasakahoko at the blonde's chest. The black chakra blade went straight through in a burst of blood, but instead of falling, Naruto grabbed the haft with his left hand. Yellow chakra lifted off him in glowing wisps, and the Amasakahoko turned white where he gripped it. Doto was startled as he was pulled off balance. Naruto formed a Rasengan, still not quite complete, but the remaining 5 Yukigekure ninja all noticed with alarm that each use of the jutsu seemed more dense, more stable, more dangerous. The man himself had some shinobi training, enough to use his chakra, but he mostly relied on the armor, so his basics were rusty, and he lacked this recognition. So Doto simply reared back his left arm, intent on crushing the skull of the blonde yokai with sound or brute force, whichever worked first. To his alarm, however, Naruto took that opportunity to step closer and hone his focus on the Rasengan a moment longer before he impacted the nearly finished Rasengan into the center of the black chest plate of the chakra no Yoroi. There was a screeching sound, higher than when the Rasengan ground against the chakra no Yoroi before, and Doto realized with growing alarm that Naruto had targeted the exact spot he'd damaged before. Repairs had been done, but the chakra no Yoroi's ninjutsu defense functions were still not fully functional there. Sparks of yellow chakra flew from the point, and Doto found his entire body jarred. Finally, with a crash, Doto was sent flying back, but he managed to keep his grip on Amasakahoko as the chakra lifted bronze and his momentum yanked the blade from Naruto's chest with a vicious spray of bleed that left Sakura feeling like she might throw up. Instead of falling over, Naruto just staggered and coughed into his left hand as his right shook near his gaping chest wound. Sasuke cursed under his breath at the blonde for being far too cocky about his abilities. Naruto's chakra flared violently around his body. Lifting up, it waved and roiled through the air in wild spirals as he tried to mold it in some way that might help. He knew his healing factor was based on his chakra, but he was trying to force his chakra into his wounds. In his panic, though, he was mostly wasting it into the air in an impressive but ultimately wasteful light show. Doto's armor at least was heavily damaged in a spiral pattern. Sasuke recognized a weak point, an opening, when he saw one. He didn't hesitate like Sakura. He didn't waste time worrying about a blonde who would get back up if he died. He weaved hand signs. From the Uchiha's left hand came the sound of chirping birds and flashes of pulsing right-hand chakra. "Chidori," he declared, suppressing a wince as he charged. Kakashi had technically given him a combat drug just so he could pull this off, a Hyogen, but he cautioned that even one use would result in severe negative side effects in 3 days' time. Sasuke accepted those consequences as he weaved around Mizore and Fubuki's attempts to stop him. The Sharingan truly made Chidori the only assassination ninjutsu that could be used in a straightforward attack while the bodyguards were looking at you. Yellow sparks again flashed, but the armor was too damaged. Sasuke's left hand burned through armor and into Doto's chest. This time the man coughed up blood. Sasuke smirked at the knowledge that his hand had damaged both lung and esophagus. A guaranteed mortal wound without immediate area ninjutsu, and the Uchiha would ensure that didn't happen. He tore his arm free, wincing at the damage the torn metal armor did to his hand as his pulled it free. So Chidori still had a slight downside in that using his left hand as a weapon was kind of painful sometimes. It was worth it. He should probably still figure out how Kakashi avoided hurting himself with it. Fubuki made a lunge for Sasuke, but the Uchiha noticed her and dodged aside as Doto staggered. Mizore actually looked breathless, likely still suffering after effects of the poison despite being treated. The remaining Yuki ninja, however, all ignored the threat Naruto and Sakura posed in their attempts to get Sasuke for what he did. Sakura saw her opportunity and stepped up slightly in front of Naruto to discourage him from charging forward before she started pulling out kunai and throwing them. Each one had a cloth filled with what almost looked like cherry blossoms. Naruto was confused and wondered what Sakura was doing, but the attack caught the Yukigekyo shinobi's attentions and Sasuke's Sharingan picked up on enough minute details to put together that he needed to put on some distance now. So the Uchiha flared his chakra to his legs and leaped backwards as far as he could. Some kunai impacted in the lightly armored ninja, but most were deflected off chakra no yoroi, or swiftly palmed kunai of their own. Dodo staggered back but managed to stand as kunai impacted his armor and scattered pink paper with black writing on it that was vaguely familiar but too small to make out. He still had one lung, he could breathe. But even he could tell he was dying, and he shot a glare at the Uchiha right as the Haruno made the ram sign. Sakura Fubuki no Jutsu. Sakura cried out proudly as she flared her chakra. This, however, activated all the other Kabaku food as she'd planted, and not just the ones she'd thrown with her kunai. The entire castle shook, as expected, and the hallways shook more, lit up with bright pink explosions from her modified Kabaki Fuda storm. Naruto stared at the charred hallway in surprise as he stepped back from the force of the blast. He was surprised at the manic grin on Sakura's face. The blonde stepped past her and approached the fallen Doto, crouched down, and picked up his Kaomi Isupuka. To his annoyance, it was damaged. Sakura-chan, I have no idea how to repair this, Naruto complained, a little annoyed the girl had gone so overboard when she usually seemed so sensible. Sakura's manic grin faltered. Sorry, she muttered, a little embarrassed herself. It took her days to prepare a jutsu that lasted all of 2 seconds. What a blast those 2 seconds were though, and it had worked. Even those in chakra no yoroi were down. Also the Amasuka Hoko was mysteriously undamaged. Seeing the damage done to the hall, Kaomi Isupuka, and chakra no yoroi, Sasuke stared at the weapon that looked like it was made out of bronze. I think that might actually be Amasuka Hoko, he muttered. The war horn in the distance that followed the explosions halted further discussion about the odd weapon. Sakura realized she had technically given the signal without being given her signal. She supposed the plan had gone off the rails enough that it shouldn't matter. Doto was dead after all, which only left the... Oh right, the Yukiana. Where's Kakashi-sensei? Sakura wondered. The eyes had expanded rapidly, and the Yukiana was terrifying. Sasuke deactivated his Sharingan to conserve his chakra. No idea. Probably on his way here or towards that war horn after that blast though. He answered simply and began rushing the way Naruto had come from, which was also the way both the Yukiana and Mizuchi had left earlier. Sakura followed after a moment's hesitation, and Naruto grabbed Amasuka Hoko before he followed. The blonde shoved the damaged Kaomi Isupuka in his tool pouch. He'd figure out how to fix it later. The 2 genin of Cell 7 tried to ignore how perturbed they still were by Naruto's blood drinking, and Sakura knew she'd killed at least 5 people, maybe 6 if her explosion had finished off Doto. The kunoichi with pink hair was a bit less certain if she wanted to use that jutsu she named after herself again. Chapter 34, Aftermath of Broken Ice. Koike Kazuhana was starting to regret the plan as soon as she saw the Mizuchi that insisted it was an Oria flying towards them. She regret the plan more when the flying serpent hid behind Sandeya and peeked at the castle. What happened? She asked. Kakuria tasted the air but did not reprimand the princess for addressing her. Yukiana is free, she answered simply, much to the concern of the retinue of samurai waiting for orders. We came because we heard the signal. Was that explosion not the signal? Koyuki pressed. The explosion was supposed to be her signal. She blamed Kakashi for this. I don't know, Kakuria answered before ducking down as another figure fled the castle. But this one dove into the snow and soon reformed into an 8-foot-tall elegant woman with long black hair and blue eyes that lacked pupils, dressed in a white kimono of woven snow. I must leave, the Mizuchi hissed before slithering away, not even bothering to fly. Koyuki and Sandeya both got the impression they should retreat, and some samurai agree. What do we do, Koyuki-hime? One man asked. Unfortunately, the loose lips of the samurai carried his words in the still air, and the Yukiana turned at her name. Koyuki Kazuhana was having a bad day. Get back here and protect me, she snapped as she chased after Kakuryu. The samurai all turned to the tall figure of a woman made of ice and snow coming at them. Sandeya swallowed a lump in his throat with an audible gulp. We fight to protect the heiress of Yuki no Kuni. Do not falter, he ordered. To his pride, he kept his voice from wavering. The samurai readied themselves, but the Yukiana stopped as Naruto, Sasuke, and and Sakura burst out the front door. "Hey! We killed that dodo guy!" The blonde shouted. "What are you going to do now?" he asked. "Amasakahoko ready?" "Slaughter those loyal to the Kazuhana and destroy the clan for their crimes." The words had an icy chill to them, but Naruto realized that her tone was oddly lyrical. The yokai was downright amused by what she planned to do, her plan to slaughter the samurai. "I won't let you do that," he said plainly. "Oh, and why not?" Naruto hesitated. He didn't actually have a very good or logical reason. "I want to protect them from you," he answered. "With that blood on your lips? You speak with blood-scented breath about protecting others?" The Yukiana seemed to find his words offensive. "No, this autumnal season has lasted too long. Yuki no Kuni will experience true winter. The weak will die, and when I sleep again the strong will be able to scramble for the resources that remain." Sakura shuddered. "That's so twisted." She muttered she saw the logic of it, but it wasn't the kind of decisions a person should make. She cast a worried glance at Naruto, who seemed more like a yokai the more she thought about it, so she tried not to think about it. "I can't let you do that," Naruto said firmly. "I guess I don't know what I really am, and the fact you don't bleed makes this fight harder." He confessed. He wasn't sure if he actually could win, but he knew Amasakahoko could hurt the frozen body of his next prey. "None of that peripheral shit matters though. All I need to do is hunt you down, you know." Naruto focused chakra to his feet and into Amasakahoko before he leaped at the Yukiana, but with a wave of her hand the two were surrounded in a small localized blizzard that neither samurai nor ninja could see though. Sasuke activated his Sharingan, but to his irritation the snow was obscuring his view. He supposed someone with Byakugan might be able to see through it, but his dojutsu could merely track the patterns of the outer layer around the small storm. The blizzard stopped, however, to reveal the Yukiana poking a dome of crystalline ice. Haku stood in front of Naruto, the blonde covered in a layer of frost that he couldn't entirely shake off. The Yukiana's hand went into the dome without disturbing the surface, as if immaterial. "So familiar, what Yuki is this?" the yokai murmured, apparently transfixed by Haku's Hayatan. Kubikura Bocho spun through the air and tore through the Yukiana's midsection in a spray of white snow. However, she seemed unharmed and reformed almost the instant after she was bisected. The massive blade planted in the snow and Zabuza landed next to it. "Hands off the kids," he demanded as his right hand gripped the handle of his weapon. "Kids?" The Yukiana regarded him with an expressionless stare. "You think these mere ninja children?" she asked. A sound like wind chimes came from her parted lips that revealed two sharp teeth. "One is yokai, and the other is blood of my clan. Why don't you cool off, ninja with a strange zanbato?" she finished with a derisive gesture. Unfortunately for Zabuza, this gesture was accompanied by freezing winds. The Nuke dodged, partly out of the hope that high-speed movements would help prevent frostbite, but mostly because the wind was cold enough to hurt. Maybe he should have worn more clothes. Haku was a bit stunned to hear his extinct clan was descended from Yukiana. He supposed it made a twisted sort of sense. Naruto got the impression Haku was a little stunned and figured he needed to snap the older boy out of it to get out of his ice dome. "Hey, Haku-kun, I know you probably feel a little weird right now," he began as he rested Amasakahoko against his right shoulder and rolled down his left sleeve, "but I just found out I can straight up drink blood. She called me Kyuketsuki, and I also found out I can reattach detached limbs." He explained his own current crises as the masked boy turned to him. "She doesn't seem like Obaken material anyway, you know." Haku nodded a little numbly, but he dropped the Hyogen Doma. Naruto ran at the Yukiana and flowed his chakra into Amasakahoko. His body glowed with a yellow aura and his weapon glowed white. The Yukiana turned in time to see the weapon that could harm her and floated backwards in time to evade. The blonde made to continue, but his prey formed a halberd to match his weapon out of ice and countered his attack. The blonde Chunin narrowly avoided losing his right eye in exchange for a gash on his cheek beneath said ocular organ. He twisted and swung his weapon, but the Yukiana proved adept with the polearm. Naruto managed to deflect the attack away but had difficulty maintaining posture against the yokai, and worse yet, he found no method to break the posture of his opponent. Zabuza considered intervening but noticed that while the Yukiana was not intimidated by his Kubikura Bocho, the chakra blade of the Amasakahoko had her conjuring an intentional weapon to defend herself. He mentally cursed himself for not practicing Chakra Nagashi more before he leaped to Haku, tried to distract with a ninjutsu. I'll knock her weapons aside, hopefully then your boyfriend can take advantage of the opening. Yes, Zabuza-san, however we are not romantically involved. Haku agreed. He knew the older man was joking, but he still felt the need to correct him on a certain statement. Then he made a hand sign and the snow flowed up into palisades of ice spears. With another hand sign the icicles multiplied and branched out at the Yukiana. Zabuza leaped high but needed to time his next move carefully. He only had one shot, so he preferred not to be so straightforward with such an attack. When the Yukiana turned, Zabuza swung Kubikuru Bocho with both arms and released the weapon. The yokai was unbothered by the distraction ice, but the massive blade actually disarming her took her by surprise. With his prey disarmed, Naruto lifted Amasakahoko and swung with all his might as Zabuza seemed to be impaled by retaliatory ice spikes, if not for the fact that his frozen body turned entirely to ice as it froze instead of a frozen corpse, indicating the use of Kawarimi with Mizu Bunshin. The Yukiana tried to retreat but was left with a gash in her chest, from left shoulder to right hip, as she backed away from the still red-eyed Chunin. Naruto lunged and made to thrust, but the Yukiana proved fast on the retreat. The yokai was cut off, however, by another yokai. With a roar, Kakuryu unleashed a blast of flames while flying at the Yukiana, catching the more humanoid yokai off guard and shrinking her size considerably as steam was vented from the temperature change between the fire attack impacting against an icy body. Naruto could barely make anything out, but he managed not to attack the Mizuchi as she changed direction to coil behind him and glared at the silhouette of the Yukiana. If you're the reason spring never comes here, then we just have to get rid of you, Naruto said, more than a little sad about it. Spring? You want for such an uncomfortable time, for the flora to violate the fauna, for overabundance? The Yukiana sounded far less reasonable than she had before. Her voice was layered with a sound not unlike wind rushing through dead trees. Snow kicked up in a miniaturized storm as she swung an arm that became large branching blades at Naruto and Kakuryu, but the blonde Ryoshi blocked with Amasakahoko, and the red-eyed serpent unleashed another gout of flame. Naruto noticed Kakuryu's fire breath getting smaller each time. He could only assume she was running out of stamina too, while in his case his issue was not stamina. His stamina was absurd. What the Uzumaki was having difficulty with was his vitality. In hindsight, Naruto should not have leaned so heavily on his immortality. But the blonde had felt strange, he still felt strange. Also, drinking that fermented blood had likely been a bad idea. I don't even live here! The Chunin snapped angrily. I live in a place where this winter isn't an issue, so I know this land would be better off without you. Kakuryu roared and unleashed another blast of flame. But now others noticed her flames getting smaller. I will melt you this time. I will not be frozen, she hissed. The Yukiana backed away from the two rot-scented yokai with a grimace as steam and mist swirled through the air around them. Zabuza had backed off to a safe distance, but Haku leaped beside Naruto and weaved hand signs, Hisatsu Hyoso, he declared, and the snow between them lifted up in spikes to impale the Yukiana. Although given what she was, it only pushed her back rather than deliver the certain death the name of the jutsu implied. You dare dash. The Yukiana was cut off by Sasuke, Gokakyu no Jutsu, he announced as he launched a blast of flame at the enemy, which was joined by another from Kakashi as he landed on the other side near Zabuza. What happened? The Konoha Jonin asked with a glance at the Nukenin. Fuck if I know, Zabuza answered bluntly. I think that is a Yukiana that Doto must have awoken. I heard that one existed long ago but never expected it to be slumbering beneath the castle. Sandave explained, a little hesitant to jump into the fight himself. Samurai used chakra, but not for ninjutsu, and he felt a little out of his depth. The Yukiana had shrunk down from her massive height due to the attacks, but Haku was alarmed to note she was absorbing the ice and taking it from his control. I don't think I can stop her, he warned. Naruto nodded. I'll finish it, he decided before he hopped up onto the nearest spike of ice and began hopping at the Yukiana from spike to spike. The yokai glared up at him, and the snow around her picked up into a localized storm again. The blonde braced himself against the cold and swung. Amasakahoko lit up with white chakra and carved through ice and snow. The Yukiana gave a high-pitched, shrill scream and backed up further into the snow. Koyuki watched nervously. She'd followed the Mizuchi back, not entirely sure what she said that convinced the serpent to come back or if something else had influenced the decision-making of the yokai. Naruto attacked relentlessly, a strangely furious expression on his face. The Yukiana became desperate. Ice lifted up in spikes from the snow to impale Naruto, but the yokai's power was clearly leaving her because they were much smaller than the ones Haku used, and the blonde simply powered through them without a care. Naruto ignored the damage he took, his pain tolerance perhaps a bit too high to be safe for a normal human, but he did not consider himself mortal anymore. Amasakahoko flashed through the air as Naruto viciously tore the Yukiana down. He attacked aggressively to stop his prey from escaping or mounting a counterattack, but he paused on what he knew was the final blow. The body of the yokai was gone completely, but a single crystal of ice thrummed with chakra and life. Naruto didn't know what it was called, but he knew that ice was the heart of the Yukiana. Kikuria seemed to notice his hesitation and was on him in an instant. Leaned over his shoulder, she breathed fire at the ice crystal, which resulted in a blast of steam as the crystal shrunk. The blonde flinched, but he didn't know if any of the fuinjutsu he knew would contain the Yukiana, so he thrust forward with Amasakahoko. He winced more when the crystal seemed to scream as it shattered, a violent, pained death cry. Sakura almost collapsed into the snow. Is it over? She asked hesitantly, worried that yet another loose end would reveal itself and cause more problems. We killed Doto and his elite guard. Sasuke spoke up for the benefit of those who had missed that. Zabuza holstered Kubikuru Bocho. Well, I have never seen a mission go that bad. He commented, your team is cursed. He told Kakashi. I think that's just Naruto-kun actually. Kakashi retorted. The blonde in question shot him an irritated scowl. Koyuki frowned as well, but for different reasons. As she approached the site of the battle, show me, she demanded. Sakura was the one to oblige and show her and the samurai retinue where the corpses were. There would be a bit of clean-up to do. Koyuki stared at the necklace. You stole my necklace? She asked incredulously. Clean-up had not taken very long. Naruto had volunteered his Kaiga Bunshin to assist her samurai. The clean-up would be impossible without Haku undoing the glacier in her castle though, and repairing that damage would take far longer than a simple clean-up. It was a safety measure, Kakashi answered with a carefree shrug, although it seems similar to the ice that Yukiana was using, doesn't it? He mused as he lifted the strange crystal necklace. I lifted it and left you with a fake because I figured Dodo would be after it, he explained. It seems he didn't need it to wake that Yukiana. Koyuki grumbled. What is Naruto anyway? She asked. Kakashi frowned under his mask, an Uzumaki shinobi. He answered vaguely, that's not all there is to it, but everyone has their own secrets. Koyuki nodded, not entirely sure what else she could say to that. Koyuki Kazuhana wasn't sure she was prepared for being the daimyo. She stared at the crystal in her hands. Doto's notes, found by Kakashi of course, seemed to think her necklace was actually a key to some great treasure. After Doto released the Yukiana that held a grudge against Kazuhana, the young woman was less than enthusiastic about finding out what it was. To distract herself, she'd ordered a feast thrown in honor of the shinobi who helped remove Doto from power. Zabuza looked uncomfortable but had been assured the feast was a free bonus and would not be taken from his pay, so he sat far away from the other ninja, across from Sandeu. Haku sat with him, but was clearly distracted, and more than a few samurai had given the pretty boy side-eyed looks. But he was glad that someone at the table for the feast was even weirder than his ice powers. Naruto missed when he was too oblivious to get embarrassed because Kakuryu of course had worse table manners than him. Even when using hen, she just used the chakra-formed hands to eat instead of chopsticks. The boy, whose eyes had returned to blue eventually but retained conspicuously slit pupils, almost considered insisting the Mizuchi just be a serpent to eat, but he supposed the giant snake eating at the table would be worse. Probably. At least the scarf Naruto had given Kakuryu wasn't too damaged, and she wasn't covering it in sauce. Koyuki watched the Mizuchi in human form be completely excited about rather mundane food, ignoring vegetables for the most part until she almost choked on beef-flavored noodles. The princess recalled the things they'd heard, but she was pulled from her musings by a voice. Naruto-san, I was wondering if we might request Amasakahoko be returned to the Kazuhana estate. Sandeo asked politely, which stopped most other conversion. Kakuria scoffed. What need has a ninjen for the weapon of a kami? She asked derisively. Her imperial air was unfortunately marred by the noodle hanging from her lip. Well, that is, it's a weapon used by Koikiheim's ancestors, and having a method to defend the rightful bloodline from a coup in future would set many of our minds at ease. Sandave explained. He or any other traditionally trained samurai could likely use the weapon after all. Oh? Kakuryu intoned longer than necessary, and a bit more mocking in tone than required. What happens should someone just use the weapon to kill your rightful bloodline? What then? She asked, but without waiting for a response she slapped the table. That's right. You'd get depressed and kill yourselves. She accused. Kakashi gave the yokai a look as a few of the samurai became uncomfortable that none of them could deny it. Better in the hands of Naruto Uzumaki, who you know is already benevolent. She finished. I'm surprised you want him to have the weapon that kept you up there for so long. Koyuki couldn't help but comment. Why would I want anyone but he who freed me to have it? I already know he's more likely to pull out than shove it in me. Kakuria said, and more than a few people choked on their food or their tea, including the blonde himself. Koyuki decided not to touch that comment. Well, back to the idea of preventing a coup. I believe hiring Naruto-kun from Konoha indefinitely would solve that nicely. She mused. This time the surprised parties dropped their cutlery. Oh, good idea! Kakuryu agreed, eyes wide with wonderment. We can be your Shugashin, she declared proudly. Naruto wondered when the two of them became a package deal but had a different protest. I have a lot of goals on the mainland actually, back in Hai no Kuni, he said. The Mizuchi turned on him as if expecting him to clarify further. Kakashi relaxed slightly, but noticed to his surprise that Sasuke was relieved by the answer as well, while Sakura was understandably just confused that the blonde was turning it down. Naruto might be safe from Akatsuki for a time in Yuki no Kuni, but it wouldn't last forever. What goals do you have? Koyuki asked, curious as to what the blonde who saved her home and extended sympathy to yokai had to do. Kakuria seemed curious as well, and Naruto had no reason to hide it. I will be Hokage, he said simply. There was other stuff to do along the way, but that was his main goal. What's a Hokage? Kakuria asked bluntly. Naruto realized the best way to describe it to the Mizuchi. Well, the Shodai and Sandaime Hokage were both known as Shinobi no Kami, and the Nidaime and Yondaime are considered just as strong. It's the strongest shinobi in Konohagakure no Sato, he explained. Ah! Kakuria sounded excited, with figurative stars in her eyes at Naruto's description of the job he aspired to. Koyuki gave an exasperated glance at the apparently easily excited yokai. Well, that's quite the goal. She muttered, What about you, Zabuza-san? She asked curiously, wondering if the new queen had plans too. Your teen would likely do well here, she commented. Haku flinched. He actually did not like the icy land that much. Yuki no Kuni had come with some revelations for him, but they had not been comfortable ones. Zabuza noticed, I have business in Mizuno Kuni. I guess you could say we have similar goals but very different methods, he answered, giving away that he fully intended on another attempted coup against the Mizuki in future. Koyuki sighed. Well, what about you, Haku-san? My goal is to help Zabuza-san achieve his goal, Haku answered without looking up. Koyuki frowned but didn't take offense. She was more worried about the boy after that answer. Ugh, you all have such serious goals, and now I have to fix the mess Dodo made, she complained, but there was a smile on her lips and her tone wasn't upset. Naruto sighed in exasperated embarrassment as Kakuria caused another scene. You dare try to imprison me, Ningen. And no, Oria-san, this is a bedroom. It is offered to you as somewhere to. I do not need your room, Kakuria hissed at the poor attendant. I go where I please. She finished with a huff, but then didn't go anywhere except to keep following Naruto anyway. The end result of this argument should have been anticipated, yet it still blindsided Naruto. I can't sleep with others watching, he told the Mizuchi. You sleep? Like an Ingen? Naruto frowned. Hey, that Yukiana mentioned we used the same blood. Did you ever dash? He began but wasn't sure how to word it. The arcane blood? Yes, I found a source deep underground and devoured what I could find. I definitely got stronger after that, Kakuryu answered smugly. Naruto tried to make sense of that. From what he could gather, Kakuryu didn't dream but wasn't mindless. However, despite a lack of interaction with the dolls, she knew that odd word. Kakuryu-chan, what are we? He asked. A couple. Naruto's existential crisis was averted by sheer red-faced embarrassment. What? He snapped. We drank together, there was an implied contract, and now we're partners, right? Kakuryu asked. Two of us makes a couple rather than a tribe. She clarified. Naruto calmed down. You should be careful with your wording. He muttered. He'd almost had a heart attack. For all he knew, yokai could just form marriage contracts like that. There was nothing wrong with my wording, Kakuryu insisted. Kakashi gave Naruto a sympathetic look the next morning, but the mission was basically done. Sandeya and the samurai wanted to handle the remnants of Yukigekyo no Sato personally, so his and Zabuza's cells had some downtime. Naruto, however, had clearly gotten no sleep. On top of that, he and Kakuryu were the center of the shinobi discussion. So, what actually happened? Haku had asked innocently enough. Kakuryu decided to answer. I offered to bring spring to this land by melting the mountains. The people agreed at first, but the Mizuchi trailed off. Eventually they went back on the deal. The Yukiana helped some ninja freeze me in place with the Amasuka Hoko, but I got a bite on him. She wasn't even there, she just added extra Hayatan chakra to the weapon and made it winter. The next thing I know, a blonde creature is standing over me, pulling the Amasuka Hoko out with a look of sympathy in his eyes. She explained. Naruto had not been aware Kakuryu had seen his sympathy in that moment, and couldn't help an embarrassed blush at the incredulous looks he received. She was still bleeding, you know, he grumbled. Kakashi sighed in tandem with Sasuke but let the Uchiha say it. Naruto, you're an idiot. I'm not stupid, Naruto protested. I'm just impulsive. Sakura was impressed that Naruto was able to accurately assess his own issue, but she wasn't sure if that made him smart or just not stupid. Kakuryu grimaced at the Uchiha, however. Her slit pupils shifted between him and the Uzumaki. Oh, Naruto no Dana, why let him talk like that? She asked in a whisper that every ninja could easily hear. The blonde's cheeks turned a darker pink. Sasuke is my friend, Naruto answered with a shrug, even if he is a jerk. He added, much to Sasuke's relief. The Uchiha did not want the situation to get sappy. He was not prepared for that. Kakuryu stared at Naruto for a moment. Weird, but I guess your ninja are stronger than most ninja. Sasuke's eye twitched. We're not his ninja, he grumbled. Naruto smirked. You will be when I'm Hokage, you know, he pointed out. Sakura noticed how Kakuryu sat back and watched the two interact. The kunoichi became aware that for all the Mizuchi had been cut off for centuries and lacked a lot of context in how things were done among humans, she definitely wasn't stupid. That the self-proclaimed dragon was capable of some ninjutsu, and had knowledge about such things, was proof of that. See you, Haku-kun, I'll miss you, Naruto said sincerely. The farewell wasn't exactly tearful, but Zabuza wanted to leave on a separate ship from the Konoha ninja now that the mission was over. I'll miss you too, Naruto-kun, Haku said fondly before he leaned in. With this money from this mission though, Zabuza-san might be able to pull something off soon. He whispered, if you get requested by name for an A rank or better mission by a Mamoto in the future, that will be me, he added with a conspiring smirk. Naruto grinned back and tapped his nose but stayed quiet. Kakashi and Zabuza raised eyebrows at the two but let the boys have their moment. Kakuryu waited for the other group of ninja to be gone before she asked, so those ninja aren't yours, and they're not even technically allies, but the pretty one is your friend? She asked and the blonde nodded. Ninja are confusing, she muttered, more confusing than Tengu. Kakashi's only concern now was getting Naruto home and figuring out what to do with Kakuryu. The blonde Chunin could teleport, but the Mizuchi that followed him everywhere clearly was not going to let the boy sleep without having things explained to her. Naruto-kun, perhaps you should organize a room for you to come and visit Koikiheim. You are in the unique position to provide Konohagakure a foothold in such a far nation at a moment's notice, Kakashi suggested, surprising the blonde since the Jonin had kept silent during the job offer before. Kakuryu was just confused. She asked the blonde. I can teleport through dreams, Naruto answered. The Mizuchi nodded as if in understanding, but Sakura and Sasuke frowned. Maybe we should come along and help explain things, Kakashi mused, a little worried that Naruto might still be mentally recovering from the events of the last few days. While the blonde was physically practically unstoppable, the Jonin had noticed that mental fatigue and exhaustion could still hamper the boy. How do I follow you into dreams? Kakashi sighed at another issue that cropped up. Kakuya had been less than amused that Naruto couldn't take anyone with him when he teleported, and upon learning that he would be teleporting to Konoha, she tasted the air around him again, more intently than before. However, as she was in human form for this tasting, it looked a little awkward. I will find this Konohagakure no Sato you speak of most easily, she said imperiously. Race you. She added with bared teeth that Sasuke could tell was an attempt to mimic a grin, and then the Mizuchi had turned back into a giant sea serpent and flown off towards the coast heading south. Sakura blinked. Oh, she is actually going to fly all the way to Konoha, isn't she? She muttered. She still has my scarf. Naruto commented. He wondered if the fabric would survive the journey. I hope your teleportation doesn't have distance limitations, Kakashi muttered. Well, me too now, Naruto retorted. He hadn't considered that issue. Koyuki was visibly startled. You reconsidered my job offer? She asked. Really? She added, unable to keep a bit of excitement out of her voice. Naruto chuckled nervously and scratched the back of his head. Well, the thing is, I can teleport. I just need a room set up for my own privacy that I can prepare. Long-distance teleportation might be a bit tricky, but I'm sure I can come by for an hour or more every day or so, unless I'm on a long-term mission like this one was or some other emergency comes up. He explained. Kakashi had helped him iron out the kinks in that idea. Sandeya thought it was odd, and a bit of a security concern, but he nodded and smiled at the way Koiki's posture perked up. All right, in that case, Naruto Uzumaki, you can have the same room you were given last night. She promised. I name you my Gokunin. In this peacetime you have created, I only ask you visit to ensure this peace is maintained in exchange for a salary. In war, however, I may ask you to lead my forces. She officiated, although external war rarely came to the isolated Yuki no Kuni. Naruto was still nervous. That title won't cause issues in Hai no Kuni, right? He asked, and Kakashi shook his head, so the blonde nodded. Right, it's an honor to accept the job, then, you know. He agreed stiffly. He wondered if maybe he was putting too much on his plate. Koyuki's smile when he fully accepted was so full of gratitude that the blonde ignored his concerns. However, he figured that he could probably use the room in the castle as another holiday home. Given his new idea that his teleportation could be used to visit places, Naruto decided to visit Nami no Kuni. He left Amasakahoko in the dream and approached Tazuna's house before heading home. The place looked like they'd renovated a bit, and were still doing so as the carpenter himself was finishing a deck. Naruto-kun? What brings you here? He asked. Naruto grinned. I can teleport now, figured I'd come visit. He said. He'd been surprised to find no creatures had moved into the hole he'd originally used. I could teleport using that room you guys let me have, but I didn't want to be rude, you know. He explained. Tazuna just laughed. The room of our hero? It's all yours. Tsunami-chan hasn't touched it, and I doubt Inari-kun will let her if she wanted to. He promised. Can you stay for dinner? He asked. Naruto considered it. I might be able to come back for dinner, but I shouldn't make promises because, there's this thing I'm racing back to Konoha. Not sure why she wanted to race teleportation, but I probably shouldn't underestimate her. He muttered the last part to himself. I mostly came by to explain that I can visit more often. And you did say I should visit, you know. He finished with a nervous laugh. Tazuna's laugh was anything but nervous, of course. Well, like I said, consider that super room yours, any renovations you want done to it. He offered. Naruto tried not to flinch. No, it's best if it's left alone actually. I wouldn't be able to teleport if it got changed a lot while I wasn't there. He explained. The bridge builder nodded. The man didn't understand ninja stuff, but he got what the blonde was saying at least. Tsunami almost dropped her teacup at the sight of Naruto entering her home with Tazuna. Oh, did you see Inari-kun already, Naruto-kun? She asked, noticing her son was not at the very differently dressed boy's side. No, but tell him I'll try to come back soon. I actually shouldn't have stopped here first, but I figured there was no harm. Naruto explained, after all, I can teleport now, you know. He finished with an amused grin at the woman's shocked expression. Well, for a bit actually. I guess I just only recently got time to visit, sorry. Tsunami stared at the boy for a moment longer. Don't apologize, this is incredible. Would you like to stay for dinner? She offered once she collected her thoughts and fastened her grip on her drink, which she silently wished was a little harder. I'd love to, but someone challenged me to this race, even though I can teleport, so I probably shouldn't stay long. Naruto explained. Tsunami nodded numbly, wondering who or what would want to race someone who could teleport. Well, you're welcome anytime, Naruto-kun, she offered, guessing why he'd stopped by now that he had some time. Naruto perked up. He'd felt guilty for not doing it before, but being told he was welcome had his grin lose all nervousness. The doll smiled pleasantly. Welcome back again, good Ryoshi, jumping all over the place lately, she commented. Naruto nodded. Yeah, things are actually I should enhance myself with you, right? He asked. That is up to you, the doll answered. Naruto sighed. Right, of course it is. Can you split Shi no Ishi on more than one thing? He asked. Simply think about how you want the power divided. The doll answered. Naruto frowned but nodded. He wanted both arcane and blood tinge to get better. He felt certain those two were the key to understanding what he was. Karen perked up at a familiar chakra, powerful but oddly cloying. The girl hopped up, still in her pajamas for her day off, and rushed out to her neighbor's apartment and knocked on the door. Welcome home, Naruto and I, she called out. Naruto smiled as he opened the door. You couldn't let me shower first? He asked. You should have showered before going to bed, Karen said primly. Now come on, Godame-sama wants a report, especially if you're teleporting back ahead of your team, she explained. Naruto blinked. Godame? He asked, stunned. That was news, Sandaime-jiji. What happened? He asked, concerned immediately. He still needed to revenge prank the old man. Retired for the second time, Karen answered as the blonde closed and locked his door. Let me just put a kimono over these pajamas, she asked before rushing to get ready. Naruto still thought it took too long, but she had sandals and a basic green kimono with white trim over her pajamas. So, Godame? Right, Karen began as they hopped to the roof and began jumping to the tower. Sandaime-sama retired for the second time, a first for any village leader, let alone a Kage. When Naruto-sama finally got sick of Godame-sama, and I quote, backseat ruling, she explained. Basically, he told her that if she wanted medical reform, she should take the hat herself. I guess someone that close to her hammering it home forced her to step up to the plate. She recounted what she had heard secondhand. Naruto just blinked without missing a jump. Tsunade-bachan took the hat? He asked. Karen almost lost her footing. Don't call her that. What is wrong with you? What's she going to do, kill me? Naruto asked sarcastically. Tsunade did not in fact kill Naruto for his overly affectionate, but slightly insulting term of endearment. What she wanted to kill him for was the news he brought with his report. You made a contract with a temperamental, rude, arrogant yokai? She asked, eye twitching. She'd even worn the hat for this meeting. The Nidaime was no longer chained up and the Sandaime sat off to the side as well, the two former Hokage taking on an advisory role. As well as Hiruzen, however, was Enma, who pinched the bridge of his nose. I heard of this Mizuchi, a yokai that wished to be Oryu. I would prefer not to escort her through my territory in the mountains, and you will find many tribes up there less cooperative with her around, he warned. Naruto had not considered that. Kakuryuchan is not that bad around me, maybe I can convince her to keep her head down, he suggested with a shrug. He didn't have any better ideas. Enma sighed. Perhaps you two didn't make the kind of contract that lets you kuchios though. He pointed out, she's simply agreed to help you and is honor-bound to do so. Hopefully this Mizuchi takes the bond formed by sharing a drink seriously, but it is hard to say with yokai, even if she is the one to have suggested it, he explained. Naruto shrugged again. Kakuryuchan seems to like the idea of me becoming Hokage, so I'm okay with having her around. I'm sure I can convince her to do ninja stuff. She can already use Henj no Jutsu. Enma's eyes snapped wider open. A Mizuchi changed her nature and became a Hengyokai in her quest to become Oryu? he asked. It wasn't unheard of for a yokai to become a hengyokai, they simply needed to learn Henge no Jutsu. It was in the name. But that jutsu was harder for yokai, and serpentine creatures, or those who otherwise lacked appendages for hand signs, had difficulty molding their chakra for complex jutsu. Tsunade sighed. I really hope you can keep her under control, Naruto-kun. She muttered, on another note, congratulations on being named Gokunin in the court of Yuki no Kuni. She added a bit more proudly, although, while Kakashi-san said there is no issue, even with your teleportation, I feel the need to advise you that you should not become Gokunin of any other courts. She warned, it's not technically illegal, but it would definitely cause diplomatic issues if you did something like that without explaining that you're already a Gokunin. She explained. Naruto nodded, no problem to both. He assured confidently. Good, then I give you Sannin training privileges, Tsunade said, surprising the blonde, but neither the Sandame nor Nidame seemed surprised. This will let you come and go from the village freely. Mostly a formality since the gate guards literally can't stop you from teleporting in. She explained, however, I'd ask you stick around until your team gets back at minimum before going with Enmadano. Maybe don't take any big missions too, a few days off. She suggested. I should check back on Koki-chan, right? Naruto asked. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. She lets you call her that? She asked dryly. The blonde just nodded. Of course she does. The woman mused with a shake of her head. That's fine. I'll need to get some paperwork done and shipped off to the daimyo so his advisors know to avoid antagonizing Yuki no Kuni. But this should actually be good for trade relations. Mizu no Kuni made things difficult when Gato died. But Umi no Kuni and Nami no Kuni. She stopped herself with a sharp inhale. Right, this job is stressful, Naruto-kun, dismissed. She finished finally. She really wished her advisors would let her drink. Chapter 35, Naturally Unnatural. Given his time off, Naruto decided to accept that offer for dinner from Tsunami and Tazuna. You've grown so much since I last saw you. I barely had time to comment on it when you were here earlier. The woman chatted idly as she finished putting down the dishes. Naruto couldn't help but notice they had a lot more meat than last time, and it seemed they could afford better quality too. He was glad to have helped so much. So how long are you visiting? Inori asked eagerly. Can you teach me ninjutsu? He added. Naruto laughed nervously. I'm probably the wrong person to teach you how to use your chakra, but I can probably teach you the basics for you to practice until I visit next. He offered, although he still felt a sense of guilt. He wasn't sure where it was coming from though. I'm pretty busy though, so I might not be able to come by very often. Inori visibly slumped at the words, but the fact Naruto might still try to teach him kept him from being too visibly disappointed. As it turned out, the issue was indeed that Naruto barely remembered how to find his own chakra. It certainly came naturally to him these days. Hopefully Inari would figure out how to make the leaf stick to his forehead by the time Naruto returned. So, how was dinner in Nami no Kuni? Karen asked curiously. She hadn't been allowed in the meeting, and then the blonde had wanted to have dinner in another nation. It was nice. Tsunami-chan, Inari-kun, and Tazunajiji are all doing way better. Naruto answered happily. He wasn't sure why Karen wanted to finish her tea in his apartment, but he supposed she just wanted help finishing off the pot. Not his favorite drink, but it wasn't bad, so he accepted and let the girl ask her questions. Their reunion was interrupted by furious knocking. Naruto. Enko snapped and Karen scowled. Why the fuck was I told to report to you about a flying Umahibi? The frantic but serious tone had the redhead go from scowling to startled. That's Kakuria-chan, but she doesn't like when ninja call her that. Naruto answered, realizing a bit too late that he had not explained the yokai to Karen yet. She's a Mizuchi. I'll come get her, I guess. He called out as he stood up. She lets you call her that? Karen asked. Of course she does. Naruto answered. Of course she does. Karen repeated with a resigned shake of her head as she stood to take her tea back to her own apartment. Enko looked more annoyed than frantic once they opened the door. Why is a yokai trying to get in the village, and why are you the one needed to de-escalate the situation? She asked suspiciously. I think she likes me. We drank sake together. Naruto answered bluntly. Also, she owes me a life debt, you know. he added. Karen decided to process that in the privacy of her room as the two more active duty ninja left to resolve the issue. Sake? Anko asked as they jumped to the rooftops. Okay, technically it was fermented blood, but it got me drunk. Naruto answered quietly once they were away from the apartments. Anyway, she's fine, you'll see. He promised. Anko doubted that. The black-scaled serpent with red eyes had rather arrogantly demanded to find out whether or not she had beaten Naruto Uzumaki to Konoha, which was how Anko even found out the blonde was already back. When they returned to the gate, however, the serpent looked at Naruto, and then at Anko. So you weren't lying, probably for the best. Your hair looks unpleasant to swallow. That the Mizuchi threatened to eat people was another issue. Kakuya-chan, we need to be human-shaped to be ninja, Naruto said bluntly, and in a cloud of smoke the giant sea serpent became a woman. Naruto recognized the general shape and saw his scarf was not entirely ruined yet, but also saw her eyes were less bloodshot and looked more normal. Although still red, she'd actually hidden her slit pupils better than he technically was. The fact she'd hidden her slit pupils by not having pupils reminded him eerily of the Yukiana, though thankfully they didn't look very alike besides that and the black Haim haircut. Kakuya had also not bothered with makeup this time, which Naruto privately thought looked a lot better, but kept basically the same black kimono with red patterns as before. Of course, my Henj no Jutsu is unmatched by mere ninjen, she declared, which revealed that the inside of her mouth still needed to be hidden and that her expressions were still just a bit too blank. Anko found it downright disturbing but turned to Naruto. You made a contract with her? She asked. The blonde shrugged, so she grinned. Interesting. I wonder which Hebijutsu I can teach you if she's your Aibwa. She mused. Kakuya turned to Anko. I thought you smelled like a Yamanohibi, so you're contracted to Tengu? She guessed. The kunoichi noted that the serpent had made herself slightly taller than the surrounding adults, and wondered if it was intentional. Anko nodded instead of verbalizing her train of thought. Yep, signed on with the Hibi. She answered, not wanting to clarify too much on that. So, they really are Tengu? Interesting. She muttered. Orochimaru never mentioned that. The kunoichi supposed the sea serpent would specify the other kind of snakes as mountain snakes though. Is Manda still around? I want to eat him. He seemed like he'd grow huge. Kakuya mused out loud. Anko blinked owlishly. We can discuss that later. She decided. Need to get you introduced to Godame Hokage-sama? She explained. Kakuya turned to Naruto. You never mentioned a Godame. She muttered. Sandame Gigi retired, so Tsunade-ba-chan took the hat before I could. I'll just be Rokadame. Naruto explained shortly. Anko tried not to snort at the honorifics he used for Hokage. Kakuya, on the other hand, seemed stunned and even vocalized a surprised noise that sounded like she was curious. Kakuya stared at the door to the office. Her expression had become almost blank, but her eyebrows were drawn in concentration and she'd figured out a more subtle frown. Naruto supposed the Mizuchi just needed to get used to being in a humanoid shape for extended periods, but he would miss the silent amusement of watching her fail at expressions. There is a Fujimi in there, but ashen instead of freshly rotten, Kakuya muttered, displeased by her own assessment. Naruto blinked. Oh, Nidame Gigi is. Get in here. The Nidame's voice interrupted and the blonde flinched. Anko suppressed a wince of her own and opened the door for him, and standing at the door inside the off-eyed while Kakuya and Naruto approached the desk. To the blonde, Chun in the ensemble was familiar, Enma was even there again. To the Mizuchi it was all new, and she glanced around at the different figures with suspicion. Naruto Uzumaki, I would appreciate you not encourage this yokai to refer to me as such. Tsunade nodded in agreement. A majority of the Hokages sit in this office, unprecedented times. She mused dryly. I am Godame Hokage, these are the Nidame and Sandame Hokage. She explained as she gestured respectively. You are? Kakuya looked to Naruto immediately instead of answering, but the blonde just stared at her waiting for her to introduce herself. The Mizuchi turned back to the assembled Hokage and her eyes darted from them, lingering on the one in blue armor who smelled like ash, to the Saru Tengu that stood with the Sandame Hokage. Naruto no Dana calls me Kakuryu, so his Hokage may do the same. Kakuya muttered contritely, stepping slightly behind the blonde and eyeing the powerful individuals cautiously. Enma raised an eyebrow. And what should others call you? He asked, expecting an immediate violent-tempered reaction. Kakuria grimaced, bared her teeth, but grit them and schooled her features into a frown. Kakuria-san, she hissed insistently. Enma's other eyebrow raised along with the first that went higher. Very well then, Kakuria-san. He muttered. He lifted his hand to his chin and stroked the hair there as he glanced to the Hokage to see what they'd do. Hiruzen was curious as well but glanced to the Naidame, as did Tsunade. Tobramajiji. The Godame muttered quietly. It's the same as having a contract with a Niken or Tengu, isn't it? She asked. Tobarama Senju frowned but eventually nodded. It is much alike, which means we the village are not expected to compensate her in any way for assisting Naruto Uzumaki. Compensating Kakuria falls on him as the contracted shinobi, he explained. Naruto glanced at the Mizuchi in question, but she didn't seem too keen on speaking up yet. Is this understood, Kakuria-san? Tsunade asked. Yes. Kakuria muttered quietly. Naruto was surprised by how subdued she was being. He noticed she seemed most afraid of the Naidame, which he supposed was not odd. Naruto would bet the Naidame Hokage was just as intimidating when alive. Tsunade had been expecting more of a fight from the Mizuchi due to what Enma told them, and exchanged a glance with Hiruzen, but her sensei merely shrugged. Tobarama was completely passive. As far as he was concerned, that was good enough. Alright then, I'll leave it to Naruto-kun to explain particulars, but I warn that any actions you take from here on will reflect on him. Tsunade warned. She watched for a reaction, for a conniving look in the eyes of the yokai. Instead, Kakuria just glanced nervously between Naruto and the Naidame, licked her lips in a subtle method of tasting the air, and nodded. The blonde Chunin scratched the back of his head. Is that all then? He asked. Tsunade nodded. Right, dismissed. She answered. Your Naidame Hokage is unnatural. Naruto rolled his eyes. We're not natural, he retorted. Kakuria flinched. No, yokai and kami are completely natural. He's something else. She disagreed with a hiss and a nervous glance back up at the tower. Enko raised an eyebrow. Well, he was human, but he died a while ago. She explained. A kenjutsu brought him back in the form you saw up there. She clarified. She didn't know the details of Edo Tensei, but that much had become apparent to most shinobi after the invasion. Kakuria grimaced. Ningen figured out jutsu to escape Shinigami and separate from samsara? She asked. I thought such arcane power was beyond Ningen, she muttered nervously. Naruto frowned. Didn't you become mushy the same way I did? He asked bluntly, which made Anko falter in her steps and double take. Kakuria didn't answer for a moment as she stared at the blonde. I was already mushy. Is that what that blood does to Ningen? She asked with wide eyes. Naruto's face blanked as he realized he'd misunderstood a little. I think so. What did you think I was? He asked bluntly. Some kind of blood-drinking hangyokai. Kakuria answered as if it was obvious, even though it implied she had no idea what he was the whole time and had been making worse guesses than him. Naruto pointed to himself. Ninja, he said insistently. I'm a human who stopped being Ningen, that's all. He explained firmly. Maybe Kyuketsuki, technically. He added quietly. Excuse you? Anko asked with both her eyebrows raised. Yukiana called me that. Naruto answered quickly. Oh, that does make sense. Kakuria mused. Are we just applying labels that kind of fit until we get confirmation? Anko asked. She didn't actually know enough about Kyuketsuki to confirm or deny that. Naruto supposed that was probably a bad idea. I guess not, but Kakuria-chan, are you good with just helping me with ninja stuff? You already sort of seem to know how to use chakra, right? He asked. Kakuria just nodded. Of course, let us celebrate with Ningen sake and these cooked meats humans enjoy, she said simply. Anko couldn't help a short laugh. Oh, this one is going to be fun. She muttered to Naruto. She silently wondered how long it would take Karen to find the three of them. I'd rather get ramen, Naruto muttered, but he supposed the Chiraku didn't serve sake. Kakuria watched Anko as the kunoichi ordered a bottle of sake and 3 cups along with every meat on the menu. When the waiter left, the woman turned to the blonde with a grin. So, a rank mission means you're buying this time, right? She asked with a cheeky grin. Naruto rolled his eyes. Sure, I just got a guaranteed salary in Yuki no Kuni, but I'll probably try to spend that there," he answered. As far as he could tell from how much he made just from completing that last mission, let alone the extra he was supposed to get, money was not much of an issue for him at that moment. Kikuria cocked her head to the side. "Wait, why do you smell kind of like Naruto no Dana?" she asked bluntly. "Are you too?" She trailed off, lifted one hand, slowly extended the pinky, and twitched it with rather poor muscle control. Enko had figured control over hands should come naturally, but she supposed the Mizuchi wasn't used to having hands. Then her mind caught up to what was being implied. Unfortunately for her sense of mischief, Naruto recovered first. "Enko-chan drinks my blood sometimes because it's a painkiller for this unique problem she has," the blonde explained quickly and quietly. Kikuria blinked 4 eyelids over 2 eyes at Enko. "I think I know which one is the Kyuketsuki," she said tonelessly. "I'm still Ningen. Orochimaru didn't do that much to me," Enko grouched, but kept her tone down as their sake arrived. "Well, if you keep drinking Naruto no Dana's blood, you'll probably stop being Ningen eventually," Kikuria said casually, and the wait staff almost dropped one of the cups. "Do not be so clumsy, Ningen," she scolded. Naruto sighed. It was almost a groan. "Kikuria-chan, try not to draw attention to us," he asked. Kikuria furrowed her brow. "I will try," she muttered seriously, as if she knew exactly how difficult such a task was for her. The waiter looked nervously at Enko, who had paled a bit at the words and discussion. "Get our food," she said shortly, taking the cup from the man and pouring herself a sake. Then she poured a cup for Kikuria and Naruto for good measure. Enko frowned at the bottles on the table, then at the perfectly sober Naruto and Kikuria. The human-shaped Mizuchi actually looked bored. "What nocturnal activities are available in this village?" she asked Enko bluntly. The kunoichi glanced at Naruto but shook her head and turned back to the Mizuchi. "Forest of Death is pretty fun if you can't sleep," she muttered. Naruto blinked. "How is that, Dash? Why is that an answer? We have bars." "Forest is free," Enko pointed out. Naruto could not deny that. Plus, regular alcohol did not seem to do much for Kikuria, or himself for that matter. The blonde Chunin glanced at the food they'd eaten and moved an empty plate aside to rest his elbow there so he could put his chin against it. "I guess training is what I usually do in my free time, besides hunting," he mused. Kikuria perked up. "These both sound good, let us go then," she insisted. "I need to pay the bill first, you know." "Stop making up nonsensical excuses, those aren't even words." Enko decided to follow the two to a training ground mostly out of boredom. She hadn't drunk as much as she might have with her usual drinking partners. The fact that Naruto and the Mizuchi were resistant to normal alcohol put a damper on her usual competitive spirit. Kikuria just glanced at Enko a few times. "Why are you joining us?" she asked eventually. Enko straightened her posture and put her hand above the center of her breasts. "I will have you know that I, Enko Mitarashi, am sometimes referred to as Enko-sensei if Naruto-kun is feeling kind," she told the Mizuchi. Naruto had not been aware that the woman thought that much of being called sensei. Kikuria just looked at him in surprise. "You called her Enko-chan though," she muttered quietly. Naruto nodded. "Enko-sensei taught me some grapples, but was put out by my affinity being futon," he explained. "Teach him other elements anyway," Kikuria told her. "Fire is easy and good. I will show him how I approximated my chakra to fire in order to assist if needed," she assured. Enko hummed thoughtfully. "I do know Karyoden no Jutsu, and with his affinity, chakra reserves, and Kage Bunshin he could accomplish some scary combination ninjutsu with himself." She mused as she considered it. Technically all she had to do was show him the hand seals. "Wait, how did you learn Katan no Jutsu?" Kikuria huffed. "By submerging my body in hot coals until my chakra acclimatized," she answered as if it was obvious. "Oh, I suppose I also ate an akuma," she added in a quiet mutter. Enko coughed into her fist as Naruto paled. "Ah, well, I'm sure with your help we can show him some stuff that will catch Orochimaru by," she began and then stopped, seeming to sober in an instant. "Naruto-kun, what would happen if you used the kinjutsu that kills you?" she asked suddenly. "How the fuck should I know?" Naruto asked. "Fair point. Want to learn a jutsu Orochimaru taught me that kills you and your target and find out? Enko offered. She would privately admit that she was curious about what would happen. Naruto shrugged. I cannot see a reason not to. He confessed, there wasn't much downside to losing his life except losing Chi no Ishi. Kikuria just grimaced. No way Hibi Tengu invented that. She muttered she knew enough about the Tengu tribes to know that much. Orochimaru liked to invent new jutsu, mostly kinjutsu but some ninjutsu that aren't completely heinous too, I guess. Enko explained for the benefit of the Mizuchi. Name one. Naruto challenged. Enko considered it. Okay, you got me, they're all pretty heinous. Anything he uses that isn't heinous probably comes from the Hibi, or he learned it from Sandaime-sama, I suppose. Naruto nodded smugly as they approached the fence around the Forest of Death. I thought as much. He said, then his eyes widened. Wait, that means Sandaime-jiji knows some Futon no Jutsu, and since he's retired now he might have time to. Enko snorted. I know you're close, but let the old man retire in peace, she advised. Naruto frowned. But he's the Sandaime Hokage. If he's retired and I am who I am, then I should ask him to at least give me some pointers, he explained. Enko blinked. Good point actually. I might come with and see if he throws me a bone too. She agreed after thinking about it. Wait, if you are who you what? What do you mean? Naruto considered how to break the news to Enko. He wondered if she already knew, so instead he just used henge just like he had with his team and Zabuza's cell. Holy dash! Enko jolted in alarm and sobered up. I had a crush on your Shikyu, she muttered to herself, but the blonde heard it, and returned to his natural form with a blush. Kikuria cackled but didn't understand fully what had been unveiled to the kunoichi. Naruto coughed into his fist. Yep, my parents are Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, he clarified. Enko blinked owlishly. That explains so much, but why are you telling me? She asked. Naruto shrugged. I figured you should know. I'll tell Karine later. It honestly keeps just slipping my mind whenever I talk to her, but I've been meaning to ask if she can tell how closely related we are by the name Kushina, he explained. Enko was still stunned she was being let in on it, and in her inebriated state she was a little sappy. Come here. She slurred and pulled the blonde into a one-armed side hug. I'ma show you how to survive this forest, or die trying. This seems like a bad idea while you're drunk, and I already survived it. Consider this extra credit. Enko retorted sagely, then she nodded. You'll be fine, I trust ya. She promised with a carefree grin and pink cheeks. Naruto wrote them off, as alcohol-induced, and was still worried. Enko blearily woke to chirping birds, which indicated that she had been correct to trust Naruto since she was alive despite falling asleep drunk in the Forest of Death. That she remembered telling the boy that indicated she had not had enough to drink before doing so. She would prefer not to remember such an embarrassing statement. That neither Naruto nor Kikuria were asleep was not surprising. That they were apparently playing some kind of game with rocks was surprising. Then Enko realized they were playing with knuckle bones. Where did you get sheep knuckles? She wondered, drawing the attention of the two to her consciousness. From sheep. Kikuria answered simply, which just raised further questions since there were no sheep in the Forest of Death, not even the man-eating kind. What are you playing? Enko decided to ask instead. The bones didn't seem to be covered in fresh blood. Otedama. Naruto answered before he tossed the rock up, picked up two knuckles with the same hand, and then caught the rock one-handed. Enko was pretty sure that game was not usually played with sheep knuckles, but she also recognized that Kikuria had better hand-eye coordination than last night. Then she recalled that the Mizuchi did not always have hands. Let's go get breakfast, she decided. Yugao looked less than impressed with Enko, which wasn't new when the woman wasn't masked. Hey Nico-chan. Naruto greeted casually, and the off-duty Umbu pinched the bridge of her nose. You can call me Yugao when the mask is off, Yugao said quietly. She was still irritated the young blonde Chunin just knew who she was but set that aside for another issue. Enko-san, do you have any idea how this looks? She asked bluntly. Like Naruto-kun is having dango for breakfast with two hot older women? Enko asked rhetorically. Kikuria furrowed her brows and opened her mouth slightly in an expression Naruto was pretty sure conveyed confusion. You three came out of the forest of death this morning. You were seen drinking with Naruto Uzumaki last night. And now you're getting breakfast together with crumpled clothes and leaves in your hair from sleeping in the woods together. Yugao explained in a quiet hiss. We didn't sleep. Naruto retorted, well, Anko-chan slept, Kakuryuchan and I didn't. He clarified. Kakuryu nodded as her expression blanked. Sleep is for Ningen and the dead. She said plainly, oh, but you said you'd get back up. She muttered with a glance at Naruto. Yugao sighed. That doesn't exactly make it better. Anko-san, you can't just attach yourself at the hip to Naruto as soon as he gets back from a month-long mission. Anko understood the problem when it was phrased like that and her cheeks went a little pink. Come on, it ain't like that, she grumbled. You and I celebrate missions too, and it was his first real A rank, right? I'm pretty sure both my C ranks got escalated to a rank. This one should probably be escalated to S rank. Naruto answered. Yugao frowned. You shouldn't joke about S rank. She muttered darkly. I am not joking. Naruto retorted bluntly. We had Zabuza Momochi helping us, and we still could have failed the mission. He explained. Anko snorted and sprayed some tea out of her nose. Mercifully she protected her dango with her hand, which she wiped with a tissue as she spluttered. Yugao opened her mouth but remained silent as she blinked a few times. I feel like I missed the story, but it seems Anko-san doesn't have it yet either. She muttered before she sat down. Explain. She demanded. Karen had been a little worried about Naruto when he didn't come home. Finding him the next morning showing off a bronze polearm he'd mentioned to a group of kunoichi was not what she expected, not quite. She approached with a relieved exhale. Oh good, Anko-chan didn't drag you off into the woods last night. She said as she approached. She recognized Tenten but not the other two. Yes, she did. Kakuryu corrected. Yugao was tempted to smack the Mizuchi but knew about the yokai part by now and wasn't sure if she'd lose a hand doing so. Well, there was no dragging, she simply said the forest of death was fun and free. She finished with a grimace. The Mizuchi had not enjoyed learning about currency. Karen immediately glared at Anko, who just raised an eyebrow. Kakuryu-san, what are you and Naruto-kun? The older kunoichi asked. Naruto no Dana and I are a couple. Kakuryu answered bluntly, which was an even better answer than Anko expected. She means we're Iwa. Naruto corrected quickly, cheeks pink, but his expression looked exasperated, as if he expected the answer. Your love life is weird. Can we go back to talking about Amasakahoko? Tenten asked bluntly. She had shown up part way through the story, caught on to the key details about Kakuryu, but more importantly and interesting to her was the supposed weapon of a kami. I do not have a love life. Naruto snapped defensively. Yugao raised an eyebrow but Anko just laughed at the absurdity of someone being offended at having a love life. Kakuryu furrowed her brow again, but frowned instead of opening her mouth this time. Kiba frowned as he passed by the dango shop. Why is Naruto surrounded by women? He muttered, but he had a team meeting so he continued on his way. What Akamaru barked had him jolt and glance back with concern at the black-haired woman among them, who turned to meet his eyes. By coincidence or because of the bark the Inuzuka could not tell and went on his way in a cold sweat. Kakuryu frowned and furrowed her brows. Naruto no Dana, there was a Ningen outside with slit pupils and a connection to Inu. She whispered loudly. Inuzuka are a ninja clan. Naruto answered shortly. He was getting used to the Mizuchi not understanding mundane things. Karen felt she was a bit out of the loop but she put some pieces together. So, you're the one Naruto and I made a contract with? She asked. Kakuryu stared at Karen for a moment, as if sizing her up. Ah, you two are related? I mean, yes. She finally answered. Oddly she sat up a bit straighter. Anko frowned. Oh, now you behave? You were eating his dango out of his hand a second ago. She grumbled. If she tried that Yugao would get on her case. Tenten raised an eyebrow. Why do you sound jealous of that? She muttered, but received no answer. It smelled good and was within eating range. Kakuryu retorted with surprising poise for someone confessing to snatching food with her mouth. Karen frowned as she considered the Mizuchi. The chakra didn't feel that different from Naruto's. It was off-putting in some ways, but familiar in others, and that uncanny nature made her a bit uncomfortable. She decided exposure therapy was in order and pulled up a chair to the already crowded table. You know what? I agree with Tenten-san. Tell us more about Amasukahoko, Naruto and I, she requested. Well, it turned chakra bright white for some reason, and I killed a Yukiana with it, Naruto answered, repeating himself a bit for Tenten and Yugao. Other than that, I don't think it's actually bronze, it just looks a lot like bronze, he said. Kakuryu nodded. It does not rust. The man who impaled my throat with it claimed he found it in the ocean, she explained. Everyone but Naruto looked concerned and confused. Karen's eyes widened in realization as she recognized that the only article of clothing that wasn't red or black was the blue scarf, which was Naruto's scarf. It's probably an alloy of bronze with a more chakra-conductive metal, but I've never seen it before. Tenten mused. She was used to eccentricities from her team and recovered quickly from Kakuryu. It's good, but I'm trying to practice my ninjutsu more, you know, Naruto said blandly as he enclosed the Amasukahoko in a scroll and pulled out Kyomiai Supaka from his tool pouch. Tenten-chan, could you help me figure out how to repair this? Tenten frowned at the damage as she took the tool and inspected it. This looks like it was in an explosion. How did you even survive that? First of all, I wasn't in the explosion. Second of all, I'd be fine if I was, Naruto retorted confidently. How did an enemy manage to take a gauntlet off you? Anko asked incredulously. 2 of them tore my left arm off, Naruto answered as he lifted said hand. Then he saw the looks he received. It's okay, I just put it back on and my chakra sort of did the rest, he explained. Karen sighed. I don't think I've ever heard of an Uzumaki having vitality as strong as yours, she muttered. I don't think sticking a severed limb back on, and it just healing like that falls under normal vitality. That sounds like a jutsu, Yugao muttered, visibly confused. Naruto pouted. Well, there was chakra involved, but I think it's more like my expression of Uzumaki vitality evolved into a Kekkei Genkai, he explained. That was a simplification that made him feel slightly more human. Eventually Tenten had to leave for a team meeting, and had informed Naruto that Lee was actually close enough to recover to go on D-rank missions. Yugao had been tempted to drag Anko off for a mission, but the Tokujonin technically still had some time off, so she left to get ready for a shift of her own instead. She figured Karen could handle the cat-herding job that was dealing with Anko, Naruto, and Kakuryu. Mostly Karen just found herself following, and watching Anko and Kakuryu follow Naruto on his way to the Sarutobi residence. The redhead wasn't actually sure why they were going there, but she'd missed her relative and was curious about the Mizuchi. However, on the way to the Sandame's home, Naruto was intercepted by Danzo. Naruto-kun, what brings you around this part of the village with your family, Ibwa, and Anko-san? He asked. The final person to be mentioned tensed up. Kakuryu just grimaced at the crippled man and wrinkled her nose. EW, she muttered quietly. I was going to ask Sandame Gigi to teach me some ninjutsu, Naruto answered quickly to cover the Mizuchi's insultingly rude vocal utterance. Really now? I'd say you should let an old man acclimatize to his retirement at the least. It took me a while to relax, Danzo lectured. What affinity do you have? Surely there are others who could spare time to teach you, he suggested. Anko wanted to advise against telling the Shimura but couldn't find the words. Futon, Naruto answered. Danzo's eye widened and his lips quirked. How interesting. I happen to have that affinity myself and know quite a few ninjutsu. Given the only one with that affinity besides myself is Asuma Sarutobi, and he is a bit busy with missions, perhaps I should teach you a thing or two before returning to my relaxing retirement. Anko sincerely doubted that Danzo had ever actually retired, and Naruto had gotten the impression that he'd kept working like the Sandame was, but given he had one of the 2 people in the entire village who shared his affinity was offering, his answer was of course, sure. Anko's eyes snapped to sudden alertness. Hold on, I'm his sensei right now, at least while Jiraiya-sama and Kakashi-san aren't around, so I'll be present for this. She insisted. She knew people didn't trust her with Naruto for rather insulting reasons, but she was pretty sure letting Danzo have his way would be worse. Karen frowned. I'm not even sure what my affinity is, but I guess I should go work on my Irian ninjutsu, she muttered, tempted to join them, but she saw that the Mizuchi wasn't going to let Naruto go anywhere without her either. Mostly she actually did want to practice normal area ninjutsu. To Enko's surprise, Danzo really did just teach Naruto the hand signs for futon, tappa, and given rather in-depth instructions on how to focus the chakra and air in the stomach. The first few attempts had winded the blonde, and likely caused internal bruising from how he winced and doubled over. The end result, however, could not be denied. Enko could not hide how surprised she was at how quickly the blonde Chunin picked it up. She'd heard all over that the Uzumaki boy was not good at ninjutsu due to his innately poor chakra control, but that did not seem to be the case. Danzo Shimura smirked almost proudly and handed Naruto a slip of paper. "My home address. I may be retired, but do not expect me to be there all the time. Hiruzen and I have started playing mahjong with his old team on occasion, and I have other hobbies besides, but I will make myself available of a morning to teach you should you not be busy with missions at those times. I enjoy a morning walk anyway." Enko could tell from the way the old man rambled that he was covering something, or didn't want them answering questions. Kikuria had other thoughts. "So this Tappa and my Ryunoiki can be combined?" she asked curiously. Danzo nodded and the Mizuchi turned to the target. "Naruto no Dana, make my flames burn brighter," she demanded before, without a hand seal, she breathed fire. The supposedly retired one-eyed old man raised an eyebrow at what the yokai could do. Naruto weaved the hand signs quickly, gathered the chakra in his stomach, and exhaled the chakra-enhanced gust of wind into the blast of flame, which did indeed enhance it. Kikuria stared at the devastation for a moment before she suddenly grinned, baring her teeth as the fire lit up her eyes. "We are such a good couple. Please stop phrasing it like that." "I refuse." Sasuke was having a slight crisis. He'd learned Haku was descended from Yukiana. Naruto took it in stride, but Naruto could walk off having his lungs, heart, and probably esophagus, and who knew what else turned into chunky salsa by a serrated brown sides, so that hardly counted. Haku's Hayatan had been described as unnatural by those who used a lesser version of it. The Yukiana had the exact same Hayatan. Kekkei Genkai. What did that mean about other Kekkei Genkai? What did that mean about Sharingan? Sasuke knew enough about the Sharingan's darker aspects, but to be unnerved and unsettled by this revelation, he knew how to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, although now he wondered if he ever even could. That aside, his biggest concern was whether or not the Sharingan was actually the result of some coupling between his ancestors and some kind of yokai, although what that yokai could have possibly been he had no idea. The Uchiha knew the legend that the Sharingan was an offshoot of the Rinnegan, but the Hyuga claimed the same thing about their Byakugan, and it could be just that. Baseless claims from shinobi who became stronger by stint of their parents producing them by breeding with yokai. Sasuke felt a queasiness that had nothing to do with seasickness, but he hid it from Sakura and Kakashi. The two of them were going over chakra affinity. Sasuke-kun has Katan affinity, but learned Chidori anyway through effort, and it only took him a month. Kakashi finished explaining how affinity didn't truly limit a ninja. Sasuke was an admittedly young example, but there were plenty of shinobi who learned multiple affinities. The Jonin left out that most learned their second at Chunin, and rarely learned the third after becoming Jonin. Sakura flowed her chakra into the offered paper and it turned damp. "Suiton, so I could learn Mizu Bunshin and Kirigikyu no Jutsu?" she asked. She was pretty sure she was in luck that Kakashi knew both of those, and they had a month-long journey for her to learn Suiton no Jutsu on a boat from her sensei. "I'll join in, those jutsu sound useful and we can probably get some combinations in," Sasuke said as he stood up. Mostly he wanted a distraction from his own confused thoughts, but he was curious about how quickly he could learn new jutsu compared to Sakura when they were doing her affinity. The Uchiha also recalled that she had excellent chakra control, so he was extra curious about watching her learn with his Sharingan. The thought of the Sharingan had Sasuke suppressing a wince, but when the time came he activated it again without a flinch or errant twitch that gave away his new discomfort with his Kekkei Genkai.